Hello, this is James Bullen from Hudson Malonglo, and this is the first in a series of screencasts intended to provide a brief technical introduction to the ArchivesSpace application. Hudson Malonglo is the development partner for ArchivesSpace, and we've been working with the project team for the last year to produce this version 1 of ArchivesSpace. Here I'm logging into an ArchivesSpace instance for the first time, just to show you quickly how the user interface looks before we go off and have a look at the code. First thing we have to do is create a repository, and then once we have a repository we can start populating it with records. Let's create an accession, call it my accession, give it a crazy identifier, and there it is. We should be able to search for that now. And let's just edit it. Perhaps we'll give it a date subrecord, creation date, single, today. Oh, and let's give it a description. Nice. Let's save that. So now we should be able to search for our new content, and there it is. So just a very quick look at the user interface. You can see some of the major record types there. And of course we can import all of the usual data formats. So I'm going to switch over now to the GitHub repository. Here you can see the root of the repository. It contains a README which has detailed instructions on installing and running ArchivesSpace, configuring it, hooking it up to MySQL, and so on. Also here you'll find an architecture document which describes some of the main components and concepts in the architecture and how they work together. There's also a section on clustering, which provides instructions on how to install ArchivesSpace in a load balancing or multi-tenant environment. The major components of ArchivesSpace are the backend, which presents a RESTful API and exchanges JSON data with its clients. It's a Sinatra application. And then the front end and public are the two user-facing applications. They are both Rails. Front end is for data management and public for patron access. There's also an indexer application which takes care of ensuring that the search indexes are up to date. ArchivesSpace is written in JRuby. And as mentioned, the backend is a Sinatra application, and the front end and public applications are Rails. We use Ant to define our build tasks. The build directory contains a README which describes how to run common tasks. The supported production database is MySQL. It includes Derby for development and demonstration purposes. We use a Ruby gem called SQL as the data access layer, and another called JSON schema to define the JSON objects that the system uses. And here's an example of a schema definition for an accession record. Search engine is Solr. You can see its configuration. And the front end uses Twitter Bootstrap and jQuery. One more thing I want to mention in this introduction is the test suite. The backend contains a bunch of RSpec tests for each of the controllers and models. It also has some integration tests, just written in Ruby. And then the user interface tests are written in Selenium. Here's some instructions on how to run the Selenium tests. Let's just take a look at an example. There you see some Selenium tests. So I hope that quick whirlwind tour is useful. As I say, in the remaining screencasts, you'll find detailed looks at the various components and concepts touched on in this screencast. Thanks.